Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me on the Sedelia and Jai Show. I am your host, Sedelia and Jai. We're back for another amazing night with our special guest, Sirena. She'll be joining us. She is going to be talking to us about her inner child tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Sirena is a mindset and health coach and speaker, and we had a really incredible conversation about how to tap into your inner child, and I thought that it'd be really awesome to share that with you guys today. She is in the building, but before we move forward, we're going to need to do a little bit of housekeeping, of course. This episode of the Sedelia and Jai Show is sponsored to you by Tandem Media. Tandem Media is a studio space out here where I am in Toronto, Canada. Sorry, guys, for you guys outside of Canada that you won't get to experience this, but if you're ever visiting, Tandem Media is a studio space for all your studio needs. They have an in-house photographer, makeup artist, you name it. We're actually going to be, a lot of people were asking me, Sedelia, you're such an amazing writer, because I'm a spoken word artist as well, for those of you who don't know. And a lot of people are like, are you going to do writing workshops? We want to learn how to delve into the depths of writing poetry a little bit more. So Tandem Media and I are actually going to be partnering to put on a writing workshop. It was supposed to start tomorrow, but we've actually pushed it back to next week. But you guys stay tuned and follow my page so that you can know, you can have all the information you need. You can follow me, follow Tandem Media, and you'll definitely get a chance to learn a little bit more about the writing workshop for those of you who are in Toronto. And I am looking at doing something online for my peoples who are not in Toronto. Don't worry, I'm not going to leave y'all out. Don't worry. We're just starting here now that we're finally able to join again a little bit, like 10 people. We're going to do a little bit of a small setup here. All right, let's get back into it. As I mentioned, our special guest tonight is Sirena, and I'm just... when I met the spirit, she's such an incredible spirit, an incredible soul. We instantly hit it off. And I remember speaking to her about this, again, inner child phenomenon, and just learning a lot about myself in that moment. And I really think it's important for me to share it with you guys, especially as we're trying to learn how to navigate today's world. And I know she also has a coaching program coming out very soon, so you guys will get to know a little bit more about that information, because I'm not an expert, honey. I just bring you the experts, okay? Very good. So, but before we bring her in, see that you're in the building? Woo! All right, before I bring you in, I want to take a quick minute to just show you a little bit of a clip. Hopefully it won't be delayed. Earlier it was, but bear with me, guys. I want to give you guys a little bit of a clip about some of the things that she talks about, so you have a bit of an introduction, okay? All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're trying something a little bit different on the show tonight. I noticed after that the volume was a little bit low, and unfortunately, you guys need to try and see if you can increase the volume on your screens and your individual devices. But I'll look into that some more. But that was just a little bit of a tidbit to just show you guys the amazing subjects that Sirena often talks about. Again, continuing this whole mindset and mental health movement. So without further ado, let's bring her in. Let's bring her in. I need you guys that are in the audience. Thank you for joining us. I need virtual claps. Let's bring in the lovely Sirena. Good evening. We got to do the little, since we're doing inner child tonight. You remember that from Little Rascals? Did you ever see that movie?
Yes.
Get him a little. Oh, that just melts my heart. It's my favorite ever. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing really good. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm loving your little bow here, giving us some cute little inner child thing.
Yes, it was purposeful. It was purposeful.
Good. Well, you look great. We're so happy to have you with us tonight. How you been doing? How have you been? You're joining us pretty late, right? You're in Boston.
Yes.
What time is it, girl?
It's the same time. It's 9 p.m.
Okay, don't be stressing me out because you were over there like writing like, oh, gonna be up late tonight. Like, what time is your bedtime?
Okay, that's the funny thing. Like inner child, like I need to be put in bed by like 9:30 now because I just wake up so early. I'm like, it's like the inner grandma in me, but then also the inner child. It's just like I've been running around crazy all day, so I'm like, okay, time for.
I love that. I love a great day, but it's so funny, even when you're saying like inner grandma, but it's still like interesting how the life cycle goes from child, and then when you become an elder or elderly, you go resort back to these childlike tendencies. That's pretty incredible with this circle of life, isn't it? So we know we're onto something, Sirena. We know we're onto something when we talk about the inner child. We're onto something.
Yes.
Before we dive in, because everyone's like, okay, all right, talk to us. I just want to just check in a little bit with you, girl. How's your inner child been? How have you been feeling during COVID?
Yes. Oh, well, let me tell you, it has been a very big growing time for both of us.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that you asked this question because I want to say at least like 2 weeks ago, she was not doing so hot. She was feeling very neglected, very, forgotten, and very confused and frustrated. Just all of those emotions that a kid would feel in this time,
right.
Being left out of what's happening in order to protect them, but then also recognizing that this is the world that they're a part of. But I'm so blessed. I got to take a bit of a vacation, and I got to go and stay with my best friend out in Minnesota and do things that make my inner child the happiest, which is just like being in nature, and like we went kayaking and went camping and just like laughing and again just like taking that full vacation. Didn't bring my computer, didn't open a single email, didn't respond to anything for a week, and I'm super grateful that I could do that. I know that's a lot easier said than done for most people.
Right.
So now she's having a blast. She's doing
Yes. I'm loving it. She came back. She said, honey, I had a vacation. Don't stress me out.
Yeah. Exactly.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And you're a mindset and health coach. That's what you are, and a speaker as well. I've listened to. That's how we actually met, right? I caught one of your speeches in one of your interviews and I was just like, yeah, you led us in a meditation, and I remember crying like crazy. And that's when I was like, oh no, like I'm a strong woman. What you mean I have an inner child? No, I'm strong. I don't need that. And when that touched me deep, I was like, oh my God, like this is it. But I was feeling that way, but I didn't know what to call it, what to identify it as, right? Like during COVID, when everyone's been talking about getting back to doing the things that they love or that they loved when they were younger, for me, like one thing that came up was, for example, coloring. I didn't know, but I started to have this huge urge to color, like crayons and everything, girl, straight up. Yeah. Wait, hold on. I have to get mine. Hold on.
I love coloring.
I have everything. So I even have this Thomas Kincaid one that's Disney. and it's
Ooh, that's
Thomas
fancy.
Kincaid, and it's like, honey, this thing is intense as heck. Okay,
That that's too
yeah.
complicated for me.
There's a lot of adult ones. There's simpler ones, but I have like the Secret Garden, honey. I'm in here about to get it. So I just that was the moment where I didn't know what to call it, but I felt this urge to like do something I did as a kid that I really loved. And when I saw your conversation, it was synchronous. I was like, that's it. That's my inner child. Oh, snap. She wants to come out and play.
Yeah.
So I'm so happy to have you here. But yeah, can you just like tell us a little bit more about what exactly is even a mindset coach before we even delve into the inner child? What is a mindset coach and what are the services that you offer, love?
Absolutely. So, mindset coaching, essentially think of it this way, right? We have ourselves, and we often have a roommate inside of our head that loves to be the most annoying thing in the world. Oftentimes, we have a difficult time in differentiating those voices,
Okay.
while also differentiating all of the other voices and opinions in our life and our society. So, my
Mm-hmm.
is to come in. I've dealt with a lot of various mental illnesses and mental health journeys throughout the way, and I was able to heal myself through holistic modalities like breath work, journaling, meditation, nutrition, and whatnot. And mindset is like the biggest, part of all of that.
I
And
think, yeah, that's the key, honey. That's the golden
yeah,
key right there.
I get to come in and be, almost like the Jill of all trades. Like I'm helping that roommate clean up what's happening in the brain, like
Yes.
helping it everything. And then my favorite part of my job is that I get to be a cheerleader for you when often, you don't have one yourself or you're super hard on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So I get to wear a lot of hats, which is my favorite thing to do.
Yay.
But really that teacher, guide, and cheerleader is my favorite part. So yeah.
I love that. I love that. And you definitely have that energy, and you definitely made me feel that way when we spoke. I was like, she supports me. She loves me. Oh my God. That's incredible. So you have a coaching workshop that you're working on that you want to launch soon. I saw you mentioned it. Tell us a little bit about that program.
Yes. So you guys are the first to hear it. I'm launching a 12-week.
A Sedelia and Joy exclusive. Hello.
So I'm launching a 12-week long one-on-one program. So we'll be having, hour-long chats every week, as well as unlimited access through an app called Voxer, where you get to kind of text me or voice note me if you feel like anything's on your mind. And we're going to be going through a lot of those things that I just mentioned. So, I'm a holistic nutritionist, I'm a personal trainer, I have an environmental studies degree, I'm an actor. So I get to just bring in all of these beautiful modalities and help you to find that most potent and truthful version of yourself. And in doing that, we have these 12 weeks of working together. And I mean, the transformations that I saw in myself, coaching myself alone, were amazing. And I'm just so, so excited to bring that to clients. So I'm launching it beta tomorrow, and the greatest thing about beta is that I will be offering it at a very, very, very low price. It's basically a steal, just so I can get some fresh clients in, and so that they can, we can work on this and experiment together and just really create this beautiful like cocoon of love, essentially.
I love that. Love a great cocoon of love. Amazing. And I noticed that you have on your page tagged helping stressed out millennials quiet their ego and live their dream life. I love that. Like, stressed out. We're always stressed out, millennials, aren't we? Why are we so stressed out? I know our parents are like, what's wrong with these people? Like, what's wrong with them? Our parents are like, what's going on? So what exactly did you mean by that?
Yeah, so I think that us as a millennial generation, we have this double-edged sort of responsibility where we have almost like the greatest responsibility on our shoulders right now, in so many ways. So, in the radical social context of it, in the environmental context of it, in our community context, we got a lot of pressure on us.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Not only do we have that pressure from, the universe at large, but then we also have this pressure from our previous generations that are forcing us to fit into the mold that they created.
And our communities that are even maybe forcing us to fit into their mold.
Exactly, which don't work, right? Because we recognize that there needs to be this shift. And
Sure.
so stuck operating in a way that doesn't serve us or serve our communities or the we just end up becoming so overwhelmed and so burnt out. Like, burnt out was my word probably from, I don't know, let me say, I mean, if I really want to think about it, I've been burnt out since I was a kid because I've been performing and going to school and having all these other responsibilities.
Right, right.
But I think the more, aware and conscious we become of everything that's happening, if we don't know how to properly take care of ourselves, we can't take care of everything outside of us. So that's why I love focusing on people who are in that same space as me, where they're super passionate about change and super passionate about the things that they want to do and the way that they want to feel, but they're just so bogged down by everything else outside of them that they need someone to be that voice of reason almost.
Absolutely. And like you said, a lot of times though, what I see that's unhealthy is we get so stressed out that we just want to shut down. When you reach a certain level of stress, you're like, no, I can't handle it. I just want to sleep.
Nap time. Yeah, exactly.
Nap time. That might be a part of my inner child too, honey. When I'm stressed out, I'm like, nap time. I don't want to deal with it today.
I know. No, I'm in. Yeah.
Amazing. So you and I also spoke a little bit again. We're not going to dive quite into the depths of the inner child, but we spoke a lot about social media, I remember, and its impact on the community in the world, in our society. And we see so many versions for me on social media of practicing self-care, what that looks like, right? And again, I'm having trouble. I want you to help me kind of navigate that. Is self-care, is having a glass of wine every night, is that like an example of self-care? Does it need to go a little bit deeper than that, What does self-care look like?
Yeah, self-care is such a loaded topic.
Yeah.
It's one
because how do you know you're not indulging or like there's like a fine line for me between taking care of yourself and overindulging or,
I think there's two sides to that coin. So
Yeah.
The first thing that I is we've also created this belief and pressure against ourselves to have to understand the difference between overindulging versus taking care of ourselves. And I think when we put that pressure on trying to define that, that's when we start to lose the aspect of self-care as well. A glass of wine, and tomorrow it looks like a glass of wine, and the day after it looks like a glass of wine. I mean, maybe that's not the best example to use, but self-care is very much so stepping into the feminine energy within ourselves. So that's that inner child, or if that's how you choose to visualize it, or just really checking in with yourself and what you need. But what often happens is that we use our masculine to force us into that self-care. So the self-care industry has become so capitalized, right? It's become so marketable, so easily investable. It makes a lot of money, which is great because we want to be, and oftentimes, taking care of ourselves does cost a penny or two. It doesn't have to, but it can, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think the most truest sense of self-care, talk about this when we get into the inner child, is really just like checking into what is going to feed your soul at that moment, and not having to, for some people it works, but not having to set aside chunks of time, like 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. is going to be my self-care time.
Right.
It's letting that intuitive flow of it come where I think it was the other day, I looked at it was last night actually, I was going like crazy, trying to do all these graphics and whatnot, and I felt good, I felt fine, but I was like, you know what, something wasn't working on my computer. I was like, I'm just going to take this as a message. I could stay up another 2 or 3 hours, but for me, I know that I'm just going to feel so much better if I just stick to the flow of what's happening tonight. And I made a cup of tea and I just kind of, sat there and went to bed. And that was my self-care, was going to bed early and drinking a cup of tea. Sometimes self-care also looks like just saying no to something that doesn't suit you,
It sounds to me like kind of the main point of self-care, based on what you said, is to learn to listen to yourself, to learn to exercise even what is coined religiously as discernment.
Exactly.
Yeah, knowing, because a lot of times, again, our body tells us what we need. We need to just open up and listen to it, or the universe tells you what you need, but you purposefully ignore it. So so that's the takeaway, ladies and gentlemen, on how to perhaps exercise self-care in your own way. Listen to yourself, because only you know what that means. Only you can define what that means, right?
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. And so yeah, let's go ahead and talk about the inner child. I know you speak a lot about it. I've talked about it a little bit on my show with the previous guest, Jessica Taylor Regan. She mentioned she is a social work instructor, teacher. So she also is a mental health advocate. But we spoke about it a little bit. We didn't really get into depth. And I was like, yeah, Sirena knows what's up. She can tell us. She can give us the 411. We need to know what's really going on. Yeah. You know, since this is a part of what you kind of specialize in, could you just tell us briefly, what does tapping into that inner child really mean when it comes to healing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So our inner child, and when I speak about inner child, I'm really talking about the ages probably between like 3 and 7 almost. So as some people might know, that's, up until the age of about 7 or 8 is when your subconscious mind is being formed. And the brief, most simple way to explain that is essentially the part of your brain that has all of the habits and stories and patterns ingrained into it that are your conscious life. Like, choosing what to put you, like, to dress on for that day is part of your conscious self. You're like, oh, I want to wear this because it matches this. But your subconscious self could be telling you, oh, I shouldn't wear this because it might be a little bit too revealing. And, there's this other pattern that was told to me as a kid, or maybe even as a teen, that if I'm revealing, too much of myself or too much cleavage or whatnot, that, I'm going to attract something negative and something negative is going to happen to me. It's something like that. So when you're going through your closet to pick, the top for the day, that's not on the forefront of your brain, but it is ruling and driving your decision, but you're not aware of it. So our inner child is the part of ourselves, I call it like the most pure, like think of a kid, right? Like pure, naive, innocent, that most pure, stripped away part of ourselves that was kind of locked at the age of, like I said, 7 or 8.
Not worried about what other people think or like how we're moving through
Exactly. And they're locked at that age, and they stay there, and they're always in us and within us. It's just a matter of understanding if that's the tool that you wish to use to tap into your highest and truest version of yourself. For some people, it's their inner child. Was for me, and it's been like revolutionary. And for other people, it's something else. But that inner child never goes away. They're always present.
And I guess I want to delve a little bit more into that, about what are the benefits of like tapping into your inner child, like, for healing a little more, because as you said, it could work for some people, but not for others. But what have you found in your professional experience, in your personal experience, what have you found is the greatest benefit? Like, why do you need to even take a look at your inner child?
Yeah. So I'll share a bit of my own story and journey that brought me exactly to where I am. It was depressed, anxious, panic attacks every single day, very debilitating, like didn't want to leave the house, couldn't do anything. It's just not so exciting of a person. And I remember there was almost this tug of war inside of me. I'm also a Gemini, if anyone cares to know. So I always have this eternal tug of war, but there's this greater tug of war inside of me where I almost felt like there was this other thing that was telling me this isn't your truth. As I went deeper and deeper into, the depths of my depression, and I began having suicidal ideations, I really recognized like this is not me. And
right.
I forget, it wasn't until like I went to the aquarium here in Boston, which if anyone's ever been, it's amazing. Like I've been
really? Oh honey, I'm on a plane tomorrow. Oh, not tomorrow, COVID.
like I've been to Ripley's, but I think our aquarium is better. Just throwing that out there. But the aquarium,
I can't argue. I haven't been yet, but I'll take your word for it.
All right. So I went to our aquarium, and I love sea turtles. Like, I'm obsessed with that. And I remember
Okay.
the aquarium that summer with a family friend of ours who was visiting from France. And all I remember, it was just, I felt like a zombie. Like, I had this dark, dark cloud over me, and everything just felt off and wrong. And it was almost like all of a sudden I saw the younger version of myself, like in the aquarium, looking at me, like just with tears staining down her face. Like, what's happening? We're supposed to be having so much fun. This is our favorite place.
Yeah.
And that hit me like a ton of bricks. And
Huh.
I remember going back home that night and having just this like very visceral reaction to needing to sit her down in front of me and like wipe her tears away and say, like, I'm here, I want to fix this, because she didn't recognize me at that point, is, you know, the sense that I was getting. um and while my experience can be a lot more, you know, spiritual than other people's, inner child work doesn't have to necessarily be as spiritual as people may make it seem, but it really just becomes the simplicity of recognizing that once you can sit that inner child version of yourself down and you can lean in to it and to ask it these questions of, how can I comfort you, how can I serve you, what made us laugh, what did we do to have fun, did we like to color, because we're so far and so separated from that even the simplest thing of like what makes us laugh is
Yes.
is so hard to answer. um and it wasn't until, you know, I sat her down and I realized that comforting her meant, you know, wrapping myself in a big blanket and listening to some, you know, indie music, or
Right.
um, I
Story of my life. No.
and I had forgotten so many parts of myself. Like, I love reading, but when I was a kid, I used to get in trouble for how much I read. Like, I'd be up
Mm.
in the middle of the night reading books, and my parents would come upstairs and they'd get so mad at me because I had school the next morning. I'd like turn the light off and like take my book away. Um, and and I remember sitting her down and her being like, read me a book, you know? And I just like had all these memories come back of how that was my self-care, how having that little, you know, indulgence of escapism almost was able to bring me back to like the things that made me excited and calmed my mind for that bit. And it's like the simplest things sometimes that we have become so distant from, that society has told us, like, man up, or, you know, be a boss babe, or, you know, fight this.
Toughen up.
Yeah, like as we get older, we're taught to fight and put on this armor, um, that we end up disregarding this inner child version of us that didn't like fight, didn't have fun fighting, you know. They just wanted to play on
Yes.
the playground for a little bit, or play on the monkey bars or something. And there's just something so beautiful in recognizing that the way that you're treating yourself as, you know, the human being, however old you are, is probably not the way you would be treating your inner child if they were sat in front of you right now.
That makes a lot of sense to me. I think people want to know, what is like a first step or maybe first 3 steps, couple of steps that someone can take towards either one, trying to identify they need to take some time to see their inner child, and or how to identify that inner child.
Yeah. So there's a lot of great ways. If you are really good at visualizing and kind of being able to close your eyes and put that image of your youngest version in your head, cool. I have so many stories and conversations happening in my head, and it works for me. But it doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah,
So
for me, like I don't even have like a lot of childhood memory. Like the
right,
most prominent ones I do, but I think it stops like before 6. I don't really remember anything.
right.
But my
So
parents always remind me, so it helps.
yeah, and there's different ways you can do that too. Um, the simplest way would even just be like looking back at photographs. And a lot of the time we look back at photographs, we get this very visceral response of, oh my goodness, I remember that memory. Or
Mm.
remembering the clothes that you were wearing tells so much about you in that space, in that moment, because you're like, oh my God, I hated wearing that outfit. Like, I had a lot. Um, or one of my favorite things for a lot of people who feel really disconnected from it, or, you know, people who their inner child was very much so hurt a lot back during those times, and the memories that do come up are not ones that they are ready to face yet and heal yet.
Yeah, or they repress it, right? That's a whole nother thing.
Exactly. Yeah, there's so much. One thing I love is, I guess I could call it like, I don't know, like the swing act. You can do two things. You can either imagine you do remember that was joyful, and just really trying to set yourself back into that. So, you know, trying to identify 5 senses, and you can make them up because you don't have to remember exactly what it was like. But you just want to really paint that picture so you can kind of drop into that egoless version of yourself. And if that's not even something that you can do, then I always love to just imagine yourself like sitting in a swing. I don't know why, but a swing was always so like memorable to me.
I think it's the motion thing is calming.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's like that, like, you know, trajectory towards the sky.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
So in control of the speed and the power. Like, there's so many metaphors to attach to a swing.
Sure.
But that's one that I've used, you know, in my meditations and whatnot. And I'll try and have, you know, my client really just sit themselves on that swing, and, you know, with every back and forth, just slowly, you know, dismantling the parts of themselves that aren't needed right now, you know, and just trying to pick the parts that they remember. Like, what was, you know, your favorite color when you were a kid? Mine changed every day, but it was usually, you know, or there's so many questions you can ask yourself to try and just get back into that. And what's beautiful is that's really the first step, is just re-recognizing yourself with your inner child. Before we get into any sort of healing, before we start asking her any big questions, it's really like elementary, because like I've said, we've ventured so far away from her.
That's true.
Be our first date, you know, like you could almost think of it this way. This just came to me. If like you're meeting a significant other's like niece or nephew or something or whatever, and you really want to make a good impression on them, you know, you're like, okay, like everybody's watching me and I want to make sure I really get to know this kid, you know, whatnot. Like, how would you approach that situation? You know, like you stuffed animal, or you know, oh, I love the pattern on your shirt. Like, that's so sweet. You know, do you like butterflies? Like, just, I know it can sound very like, you know,
but we do it though. We know that it's in us, because the way we speak to our dogs, the way we relate to other children, or pets rather, and the way we relate to other children is very much, we tap into that child in us to relate to them. So why can't we relate to ourselves? It makes perfect sense to me. Yeah. And you just mentioned it, and I don't want to get too much off topic. Forgive me, but I'm a conversationalist. And when you said when you mentioned just briefly, like, oh, say you're meeting your partners or your significant others, like nephew or niece or whatever, you want to make sure that, you know, you're tapping into a part of yourself to relate to that child. But I was thinking, even the excitement of going on a date. Okay, whoa, random. Like, that's even a weird part of an inner child. Like, I can't remember the last time I got excited to go on a date. Like, adults, we're like, I'm not excited anymore. Like, I'm like, okay, here we go, another one. Let's see what happens, right? Like, remember when we were younger? We were like, oh, we have to go get an outfit. We have to look good. Oh my God, I have butterflies. Oh my God, is he gonna like me? Yeah, I talked to him all night. My high school boyfriend, we talked all night. Like, you know, he walks me to school. Like, you know, carries my books. Like, again, very childlike, but those things bring that excitement and bring what I like to think friendship.
Yeah, it's, as children, we loved to romanticize everything, and people ask,
and as adults, we lose that, and I think that's part of our disconnect in our generation in terms of relationships. What do I know?
Yeah, and in so many ways, you know, people are always like, Serena, you have so much energy. You're such an energizer bunny. You're always so positive and uplifting. Like, how do you have the energy to do that, not only for yourself, but everybody else? And I mean, I always come back to the simple thing of, like, I romanticize the heck out of a lot of things, especially the things that I don't like to do, you know? And everybody's done this. Like, people who are listening, like, you can't tell me that you've never sat and stared out the window of your car and not imagined yourself in a music video. Do you know what
Serena, I think I'm in a musical every day. This is my life. And people tell me, no, cut it out. I'm like, why are you guys trying to ruin my dreams? Like,
yeah, exactly. And that's it. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's the elves, that all of the pressure of everything has, has just forced us to believe is not important. But what I'm really trying to change the paradigm is that, I believe in a world where our inner child is our greatest mentor, where she's the one that's helping us guide the decisions, to help us govern our communities, to understand that, like we've learned, you have to put your oxygen mask on first before you help anybody else. We can't fully heal the outside. We can't force everybody to have this conscious collective if we haven't done that within ourselves. I mean, we're talking so much about like spiritual bypassing lately has been something that's been floating around so much, at least in my space.
Sure.
And it's that same thing of, we're working at our 9-to-5 job, or working as a nurse, and we're taking care of all of these people and doing all of these things. But if it's only leading us to burn out and to make this inner child like absolutely hate the world and lose that, like, Tinkerbell joy, then what are we living for,
And also don't suppress it in others. For me, like I was saying, I feel like a lot of people in my life are like, grow up. That's what everyone always tells you, right? Even if you are grown and you're handling your responsibilities day to day. If I'm doing what I need to do, don't tell me I can't dance around my living room like I'm Cinderella. Who are you?
Because someone told them when they were a kid that wasn't appropriate to do anymore. It's like the stories that they've been told are projected onto us. And then, I'm the same way. I'm like, I love to be silly. I don't get embarrassed very easily. I love to have people laugh.
Me too. Asshole sister, yes.
So I am more than willing to make a fool of myself if it means that someone people look at me like, oh, what are you doing? And I'm like, why does this bother you so much? And my inner child is having a heyday right now. And you're being a party pooper, so I would love for you to just take your part,
Yeah. Speaking of party poopers, before we go into that, because you're saying that, and I think children always like know what they want. I low-key respect kids are like, nope, yes, I want it, I don't want it. They're thugs. Like, they know what they want. Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll get into that real quick, but we have a comment that I just want to address, and I don't normally do this, but someone asked, how do you channel your inner child with this pressure of world? But I think they missed the first part of what we were already kind of touching on, that we were talking about how to identify it. So would you mind just reiterating that a little bit in a tight way for our viewer?
Yeah, of course. Great question. So essentially, it's just trying to find what brings you back to the most pure parts of being a child for you. Oftentimes it requires a quiet space to do so, or even a journal. But the simple ways we were just touching on are, visualizing the inner child, or visualizing a very potent, beautiful memory. Or if none of those are within your grasp and reach right now, I love to imagine myself on a swing and just ask myself the simple questions. What's your favorite color? What's your favorite snack of the day? What's something that you're super simple questions that allow you to just remember and put yourself back into what it was like to be a child. And then all the healing work comes after.
So how it says first, I think to even tell this gentleman again, to reiterate, if I may, first, like, you already are thinking, if you're even thinking in the scope that I may want to tap into my inner child, then that's a great step. Like, some people don't even they don't even know, what is this? I'm an adult. Like, what? So just thinking about that is a great first step, right, Sirena?
Absolutely. Like, I think.
And from there, then you need to do it. So then just tap into it. Think about what things you liked as an inner child, or things you wanted to do with the examples that Sirena just gave you. Then just do it. Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. So yeah, we were talking about the little kids being thugs. Yeah, no. They know what they want. They don't take no, or they don't say yes. They don't want to do it. They don't do it, So I want to ask, just what is the power of seeing things as black and white, meaning in terms of the mindset, and decision making? Like, as adults, I feel like we're all over the place. The kids seem to have even a better understanding of life than we do. They know. They're like...
Yeah. Love to live in this gray area when we get older.
this, I know this is the truth, but maybe,
yeah. And that gray area we essentially got to because we listened to ego, we listened to doubt, we listened to other people. But children have a yes or a no. And we actually are built to have a yes or a no. People will call it your gut instinct. If your gut will tell you it is a heck yes. And if it is a heck yes, then not a heck yes, then it's a no. And you can tap into that, which, you know, I kind of go over with my clients. It's a bit more long form, but
so basically, guys, you need to book our services so you can get into depth if you feel like you know how to say yes or no. Okay.
Yeah, and there are a lot of tools. I used to be a super indecisive person, especially as a child, because one of the stories that I was told was that, you know, I can't trust my own decisions that I make. And I had thought, especially, you know, within the last couple of years, of teaching myself how to trust my own gut instinct. But it is, kids love that. Like, you ask, do you want a snack? Yes or no? Usually the answer is yes for that sort of question.
We love food, duh, of course.
So if you notice, when you ask a kid a question, when they get that yes or their no, they are so committed and hell-bent and stubborn about it. They will go all the way into a full-blown temper tantrum in the middle of the ROM, because I used to be a nanny, and this happened to one of my girls, because they want that stuffy. And that's period. And they're going to do whatever they need to do in order to get that, or fulfill the, you know, the positive emotion that they're trying to get from that stuffy.
Yes.
And the power and the magic starts to happen when us as adults, we start to tell the world, our peers, the universe what we want by showing up and saying yes, by committing to something 110%. Because everybody knows, like, doing anything half-assed is going to turn out like doo-doo. Like, it's not good.
And we wonder why we're not succeeding, excelling, or fulfilling our leading, you know, fulfilling lives.
Exactly, because you're like 1 foot in, 1 foot out, you know?
Yeah.
And the, you know, whatever, you know, sort of great power that you believe in, or even just other people, like, people can sense that energy and they don't want anything to do with it. If you're in an interview and you're already thinking, you're not good enough for it, or you're not wearing the right outfit, or you're already kind of projecting what you believe about the environment of the workspace or whatever, like, people pick up on that sort of thing. And that's, you know, the universe will listen and be like, oh, you obviously don't want this because you're not fully committed and present, so I'm not going to give it to you. Kids don't have that. Kids are super present, and, you know, super in the focus and in the now. While there are times, you know, I was a very anxious kid, so you can be in the future and the past, but at their truest nature of self, especially, you know, when they're in their feels and they're all positive, they are the more present than any of us could be.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes an incredible amount of sense. And I kind of want to move forward into the importance of language when you are speaking to yourself or to your inner child, but even yourself, because they're, again, one, if we're thinking about it as one entity, what's the importance of the language that you use?
Yeah, it's so important. The simplest thing I say is, everything that you say to yourself, if you even remotely think about, I want you to imagine, just saying it out loud first, because when you really start to hear, you know, how kind of aggressive those words are, it's one thing. And then the second thing is, I want you to imagine saying that to a child, maybe not even your inner child, okay? If we haven't gotten that far in visualizing that, I want you to imagine just saying it to, like, the neighbor's kid. When we're thinking about body image, when we're thinking about, you know, oh, I should have done this, or I should have done that, like, you're so stupid, or, you know, you failed at that again, or I can't believe you're, you know, this and that, and we swear so much, if you like that sort of thing. And we're so aggressive and so mean. We're such bullies to ourselves, to our inner child. But then when we realize for a second, you know, if someone were to come to you and say, do you mind just saying what you're thinking out loud to this child? Be like, no. Well, why not? You're obviously more than comfortable with saying it to yourself with such confidence too. Why don't you say it? And I catch myself doing that. I caught myself this morning when I was like, oh my God, I'm being so lazy. Like, I should have done that already. Like, this should have been finished. And I'm like, okay, I would never be so like, aggressive about that to my inner child. Like, what I was thinking about was merely the fact that like I got up and started doing work immediately instead of going out for my run. And I was like, oh,
Mm. I
ridiculous.
beat up myself all the time, Sirene. All
Yeah.
the
So just think about saying it to a kid, and then you'll be like,
time.
oh, that's really not nice,
Yeah. Or like, yeah, how you say, I might even keep to myself.
Yeah,
And it's so funny because I tell people, you need to know how to speak to me, coax me, treat me nice, speak to me gently. It will speak to
right.
me sexy. No, I need to speak to myself that way.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. We do. We do. And somewhere along the road, we were told that we weren't allowed to speak to ourselves that way. Like people have come to me before, clients, and they're like, oh, but isn't that super narcissistic to say? And I'm like, you're telling me it's narcissistic to think, like, to stand in front of the mirror and be like, I am beautiful, I am capable, I am, all these affirmations. That's not narcissistic, that's powerful. That's
Yes.
all of the millionaires and billionaires and people are doing. They're just not telling you their secrets because, they're their secrets. But like, frick, like something as simple as an affirmation we say to kids all the time. Oh, you're doing great. Oh, don't worry about it. Oh, I'm
Mm.
right here just in case, you got this, you're gonna crush it. Or even the way that you'd speak to your friends, like, you're gonna rock that interview. They're silly if they don't pick you for that job. Why are we so
Mm.
okay with giving it to others? And the second we start to give it to ourselves, we start to feel little. We start to feel like it's not allowed, like it's icky, like there's shame or guilt around it. And again, that takes work and time to do.
Absolutely.
Whether it's through a meditation. I love doing meditation on those sorts of healings with clients,
And
because
you will lead us in a very brief 10-minute meditation at the end of this. I'm really
yeah.
excited about that. But yeah, so guys, hang on. You'll get a tidbit so you know what you need to do to get started. It'll just hold you, tie you over until you can, as we say, break your fast. Okay. And then you can bring in Sirena to help you, do an extension of that. Or there's a lot of others who are offering these services. But in my opinion, Sirena is really doing her thing. And she's one of those people you can really tune into and tap into and can understand you and has the patience for you. So that's my recommendation. That, yeah. Um, but going back just really quickly to the kind of being clear about yes and no and black and white, I want to talk about how children are also very picky to me. Like they absolutely know what they want, but a part of that pickiness is, I believe, like I want to talk a little bit about it in terms of how it relates to deciding the people that you bring into your life, because I think that's so powerful. How does that inner child, like, or that kind of mentality help, when you're deciding who to keep in your space, or what purpose does that serve?
Yeah, so simplest thing is, would I want to play with them on the playground? I mean, it's not about being mean, because there is a way of bullying, and we see bullying, on the
Absolutely.
playground all the time. But there's a difference, and there's this beautiful thing that kids understand their, like, almost their energy field a lot better than we do, because they're so clear and potent to it. Um, that they just kind of know what's going to make them feel good and what's not. And if they read a vibe that's like, like, I don't, I just want to play alone, they're very confident in saying that. Not, I mean, of course, this is a case by case scenario, but usually they can sense that instinct, and they will try and separate themselves to understand that the way I'm playing with my Barbies is the way that I want to play with them. And we can maybe try and play something together, and we see, like, we see kids make up and have compromise all of the time, which is the beauty
Right.
of growth
Sharing
and
is
learning.
caring.
Exactly, sharing is caring, of course. But we also have to understand that there are so many things against us right now, like so many things, people, systems, like, just so many things against us, that the last thing we need is to not only be against ourselves, but to have our immediate environment also be against us. When I say that my favorite part about my job is being a cheerleader for people, it really is, because so often the people that come to me have never had that sort of support system in their life, or never even believed that they were allowed to have that sort of support system. And the fact that we're okay that society has told us that, you know, we have to get along with everybody. We have to invite everybody to our tea parties. Not only does it not serve us, but it also doesn't serve them. You know, I think there's a disconnect between, as children, we recognize, like, I don't want to play with you because you can't play the way that I want to play, and I can't play the way that you want to play. So it's just not a good match. But as we get older, we feel like we have to force ourselves into, you know, romantic relationships or friendship relationships, or even, you know, with colleagues at work, in order to
I
just
think that's
pacify.
because intentions are no longer pure.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it totally could be. And I think the reason why intentions aren't pure is because of that fragmentation that we have, that's just made us become so far away from our own truth, that oftentimes we, more often than not, we're just walking around having no idea what our intentions are, and just believing that, you know, somebody else has to tell us what they are and who they are and whatnot. And
That's true.
you know, if you're someone, you know, I'm an empath, which means that I'm very in tune and aware and very open and vulnerable to a lot of people's energies, and which is cool because I'm also an actor. I think it worked hand in hand because I can really
Right.
put myself into other people's shoes. But I used to sense energies, and still, like, energies that I just felt like a little bit of resistance with. And I would still force myself to hang out with them. And then what I found at the end of the day was I felt drained. I felt like, you know, a bit hopeless. Like maybe the ideas that I had even shared with that person just felt small. Um, because I felt like I had to say yes because they were being nice to me or they wanted to hang out with me. But when you start to shift that, it's, yeah, you might lose some friends along the way, but what you're going to find is this like pure and beautiful family that's a magnet to you. Like even me meeting you, Sedalia, like I loved how effortlessly it just flowed. And you know, chatting with you on the phone, I was like, oh my goodness, I need to like fly to Toronto tomorrow. I need to have a lunch date with her.
We
Do
need
you
to
know
have
what
a
I
lunch
mean?
date.
Yeah, no, truly, like I was like, I need to have a lunch date.
That's
um
exactly how I felt.
yes, and because, and what I believe is that when you start to put out your own, you know, you're like high vibing, and you don't have to be an Energizer bunny, you just have to be
Yeah.
your own truest version of yourself. You'll
Yeah.
attract those people in that same way, and you
Mm.
will never have a draining experience again, because those
Mm.
people will be there to uplift you and to hold you and support you in that way. And then you're just in like that cocoon of love, you know, that we talked about earlier.
Yay, cocoon of love. I love it. Yes, that makes so much sense. And I'm definitely working on it. I think that everyone can work on it. I know that you've also touched on like blaming others for our misfortunes. And even though it's understandable, like for the pain or the damage that they've caused, like that can still
Mhm.
hinder our healing, right? Like, what are some steps that we can take towards like, well, or maybe even before that, let's talk about how does blaming others hinder us? Because I'm saying it, but I'm not an expert. How do I know that's true? How does blaming others for our pain hinder our growth?
Yeah.
Even if
Think of
it's
it.
parents or family, right? That happens a lot.
Mhm. Think of it this way. I think it was the Buddha that said this, or somebody, you know, and I'm gonna butcher it now, but um, anger is like holding a hot rock with the intention of throwing it, but you're the one who gets burned.
Ooh,
Yeah.
ooh, yes, preach, honey.
And that's that same idea, right? Like, I think the dramatization of so much that goes on in our lives makes us feel like if we hold on to this thing and have revenge to this thing is like sexy almost, you know? Like we've romanticized the bad parts of anger and, like, you know, drama. Um
Yes,
but what
that's
essentially,
true.
exactly,
I
but what
even
essentially
inviting
happens.
conflict just so we can like feel or say that we're hurt. Like I just want you to feel sorry for me.
Yeah. And so much of that comes from the way that the inner child was treated, and what, you know, he or she had to go through. If it was a lot of abuse, if it was, you know, a lot of neglect and abandonment, there's so much of that's going to resurface, because during your youth, when that subconscious mind was building, you were you believed in a world where if you were the victim, you were valuable or validated.
Ooh,
So, and that's a very common pattern too. Like, I just want to make that very clear.
Absolutely.
Having that pattern of abandonment and neglect being that thing that makes you feel like you have to hold on to toxic relationships is so common, But what's even more beautiful is recognizing the fact that through various modalities of healing, that no longer has to become your truth, because there's so much more power in recognizing the fact that that anger, that hot rock that you're holding, holds no purpose whatsoever. The only thing it does is burn you in the process, because that other person does not know what's happening, or even if they do, like if it's a fight or whatnot, it's this beautiful passionate energy that can be redirected towards healing, for example. That's not to say that sometimes a good yell or a good, screaming into the pillow is unhealthy, because it's actually very healthy. It helps cleanse that throat. But I think it just comes back down to realizing when you're ready to, forgive, that requires its own amount of healing. And then it's not so much as forgetting, but it's about compassionately moving on once you've been able to heal those parts of yourself. Sometimes we do it opposite ways. I can give a personal experience. My dad and I have a very close relationship, and we always have. And right now, like, we're tight. We're buddies, love him, crack open a beer with him. It's all good time.
Nice.
But I was talking to my own coach, because all coaches have coaches. And
That's right.
And I started to figure out this pattern that I was having in, my relationships with other people, and recognizing that I had suppressed so much of, the abuse that I, received from my father. And I love my father, and I never
we're so similar in that regard, and I really hate to cut you off, but I'm looking at the time, and we have about 50 seconds. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to step back out, if that's okay, with our special guest, Irena, tonight, our mindset and mental health coach for this evening. She is dropping gems. She is telling us how to tap into our inner child, how to heal, how to just listen to ourselves, how to exercise discernment. So we're going to go and we're going to come right back in. This episode of the Sedalia and Jess Show is sponsored by Tandem Media. We'll be right back.